Welcome to the Hunter Call of the Wild. Today it's kind of a talking head thing. This is a recording or a replay of gameplay, but my mic had issues, more or less. I've had issues. I've had fingered buttons. Things didn't work properly. But more specifically, because I couldn't figure out a way to cut it together to make sense. I wanted to cover the glitch that happened in the last video, as well as explain kind of my experience with the glitches and how I've come to understand how they function, as well as how I can kind of more or less force them on demand. So what you're looking at here is what I would consider a glitch zone. You'll see here in a second I go to engage the animals, and instead of running away or fleeing, they start running around in a confined area. They never actually flee the area, and it's basically fish in a barrel situation. I've seen a lot of people refer to this as like a glitch zone, and it kind of makes sense, but to me there's always been the fact that you can kind of push them beyond this. So let me show you what I mean. So here, after pushing a herd around the map, I actually fast traveled to the southernmost outpost, and I heard some wildebeest, so I went ahead to cover them. Now I was actually specifically looking for a gold-colored wildebeest. And you can actually see a couple running around on the side of the screen. And it was about that time I realized, oh hey, there's a herd right here. And there's Goldie, the one I'd actually been looking for. So somehow they have ignored the sound of my ATV. I shoot. They don't react. They are broken. Now, this kind of breaking where the herds just stand still, I've been able to have happen multiple times. On this particular map, during this hunt was 3 hours. I encountered 4 wildebeest herds. 3 of them broke. 2 of them in the full stop like this, and 1 in the start stop. So you'll see right now they're actually doing this weird starting to run, then stop to run, start to run, then stop to run. And as I engage them more, introduce more of a threat, shooting more of them, getting the ATV riding around, they end up going to full stop. It's not just this map either. Been able to do this on Layton Lake actually quite reliably. Any area where mass amounts of animals will be in the same spot. There's actually one on the river where I've seen it that it was whitetail deer, moose, and Roosevelt elk all in the same area. One of the first times we actually encountered this, Bear and I were playing, the ATVs had just been introduced, and we actually encountered this on the East German map, or Eastern European map, whatever that one's called. And it was red deer had gotten stuck on a cliffside. So the way I've been able to get this to work is to find a herd. And the key to it is to kind of be able to get them just at the edge of render distance, and then start changing your distance between them rapidly. They'll run, they'll react, but once they start to do the pause, start running thing, that's when you engage them, you get in closer, more noise, more gunfire, and a lot of the times they will start to break. They'll come to full stop like this. Now I actually ended up running out of ammunition for this rifle and switching to my revolver. So by the end of this hunt, again, I don't know if I already said it, but I had 47 dropped animals. I made almost, or actually a little over 1,000 points, handgun points, 70k cash. Now, why this happens might be specific to my system. Well, not mine, but systems like mine. I have an overpowered GPU and an underpowered CPU. I'm running a Gigabyte Aorus 1080 Ti Extreme Edition at 1080p, but I cap it at 60 frames for recording purposes. And then I have a Xeon E5 8-core processor, 16 threads, all core boost to 2.7, 2-core boost to 3.0. That's actually bad. That's real bad, if you aren't aware of that. Some of you were probably like, dear God, you were bottlenecked. Yes, I am. But at the time I put the system together, I was actually using 980s, and the Xeon provided a better combination of workflow for editing and using the software encoder and software decoder, and the single thread performance was enough for 1080p, and it still technically is. Yeah, at this point I actually heard a lion. I never did find that lion. I swear it had broken just like the lion in the last glitch video that ended up killing me. So why might that be interesting, the low CPU performance? The AI is handled on a tiered system. This I believe to be true. Now granted, of course, a lot of how the AI works is going to be my opinion based off experience, but I am 99% sure it's a tiered system. The reason being is anyone who's ever put a structure up or put a parked an ATV, gone to rest for a few hours, come back, and hey, there's a trail passing through the structure or through the ATV, and yet if you sit there and watch the animal, you actually end up with the animal actively avoiding it. Well, that's because if it's outside a render range or the animal isn't being rendered, I believe that it doesn't account for player interference. It doesn't account for, of course, the obvious, can it hear you, can it see you, can it smell you? That's given. Even in render range, it may not account for that till a certain distance, dependent on species. But it won't account for player structures. So with these large herd animals, or large herds of animals, or any large gathering of animals, something that may not have the CPU performance, I'm thinking might have something to do with it, but basically by changing distance rapidly, you're changing the level of the AI. And that gives it this ability to get confused. And eventually it gets confused to the point where it has to ignore you, because right now they're being rendered because my graphics card is rendering them, but I think the game is still recognizing that they may not be in render range. They're not at that level. They're still acting as if they're outside. Now, there are some immediate things. You can see here they actually start to run again. They're starting to catch up. It's like, oh, I need to be moving. But at the same point, that could just be the initial response. I think their initial flee reaction, like when you shoot them and they launch a few steps, I think that's not part of the AI, that's just like a reaction they do. So whether or not you're in range, they're going to do that. Same with, if you notice on some of them as you walk around, they'll constantly turn to face you. Again, I think that's part of the animation, not so much the AI. So it's not a result of the AI going, hey, there's a threat. It's a result of the game rendering it and going, player point of view is over here, turn animal. Again, kind of the way I get this to work, changing distance rapidly. If I find an area where I can see to my render range, I will scan it constantly, and sometimes you'll see right at the edge of render range, right before that kind of haze comes in, which is really hard here on the Savannah because it's got the heat haze, which is a little more aggressive. Leighton Lake, it's real obvious where the render range is. And then as you're going down, you'll suddenly see like a group of animals just kind of pop into existence. That's your render range. Sometimes if you stop right then, as soon as you see them and kind of pay attention, are they moving away from you or towards you? If they're moving towards you, then chances are that means that the next need zone in their cycle is either between them and you or behind you. Now if you close a gap rapidly, but keep just enough to where they can get out of render range without getting closer to another need zone, that's when you'll confuse them and have a glitch zone scenario, where they react to you, run away, get beyond the range to where they're supposed to be reacting to player threat, turn around, and come back for the need zone. Then when they get closer to the need zone, player threat, turn around, and then they start doing their little circle runaround thing. Here, where they're at full stop, it's just broken. It happened, as I said, I get it to happen with large animals, or large herds. Any movement they're doing right now is just part of the animation cycle, not the AI cycle. And that's it. The AI is completely dead. I wipe out this herd. I completely wipe them out. They never move. You can actually see this is where I went looking. I saw enough trails to lead me to believe that there were a couple left. And as I crest the hill, here's the second gold-colored gold wildebeest. Funny thing, I forgot I was out of 30-aught ammo, so I ended up putting a tent down. Yeah, forgot I was out of ammo. Could they fix this to where this doesn't happen? Sure. I'll say I'm confident in the fact that it's probably an optimization thing. Uh, if they were to make it to where every animal on the map was rendered with full AI capabilities at all times, you would need a god of a CPU to be able to do that. I would hazard to say that depending on if their engine has multi-core flexibility that they're able to enable or reprogram to utilize. If it doesn't, no, there's no way they could do that because even something like a 9900K running 5 gigahertz would struggle. Yeah, that was weird. Somehow I got attacked by a dead animal. It would take an immense amount of commuting power, especially with this large animal and how many herds they have, all the animals all over the map. So the tiered system, dependent on player distance, allows for it to conserve system resources a bit, which opens up their consumer base. They can have more people playing with lower end systems and not have to worry about, oh, well, if you don't, having to have ridiculous minimum requirements, which, of course, minimum requirements for video games usually is not based at all on the game itself, but the API it's using, so the DirectX version. So they're not going to, a lot of the times most developers, they won't put out there, you need to have at least this CPU and this GPU to run our game. It's, well, that's the requirements for the whichever DirectX version that the engine utilizes. In the end, as I said, the glitch tends to work. A lot of the times changing distance rapidly. If you happen to know, like if you like this herd, I pushed them down with the ATV, traveled back away, and then fast traveled to the base, and that's what broke this one. The very first herd I broke for the day, I just rode around on the ATV and pushed them up to a cliffside, and then I actually fell down the cliff and then went back up, and they broke. The one at the beginning of this video, the glitch zone group, that was just luck of the draw. I crested a hill, there they were, and instead of engaging, I engaged them at distance. They somehow broke that way. Can I do it every time? No. It's where the herds are. Once you have the hunting pressure in the area, it kind of starts to affect where they're going to start their cycle at. But it is possible, especially with the wildebeest. Wildebeests are very easy, but it's even possible with things like the moose, white-tailed deer, Roosevelt elk, red deer. You just have to pay attention and kind of learn the maps, learn where they all pop into existence, and then take advantage of that. And it's just an easier way to get your points and get your money. I'd be very curious to see how many people out there have experienced this, where it's full stop. If you have, comment down below what animal, what map, what time of day, kind of stuff like that. And are you playing on console or PC? If you're playing on PC, system specs, graphics settings, because I'm curious to see if it really is my CPU is the issue. My system never bogs down. I do get this weird frame rate drop. Right now I don't have it when I was in this section, but later on as I tried to push another herd out, but I kept getting stuck in the trees and I wasn't able to do what I, get away and come back as I wanted to. I noticed a frame rate drop down to like 25 FPS, but not a single one of my threads was being overloaded. Neither the two that were being used by the game. The GPU wasn't overloaded. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out why. How have you experienced this? Have you utilized this? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's unfair? My opinion, I think it's perfectly fair to utilize this as a method for hunting, because in the end, you're not hunting real animals. You're hunting a computer. So if you figured out a way to outsmart the computer, isn't that just being a good hunter? I might do a little more experimenting with this with other species on other maps. Then that happens once in a while. Yeah, just go ahead, register my shots any day now. This guy actually here, he was like a Terminator. He ended up with, I think, 4 shots in the head and was still going. I know the 357 isn't, exactly as powerful as, say, the 30-aught or the 300, but still, 4 bullets in the head would normally stop something, you'd think. Yep. Nah, he's fine. He's fine. You just brush that one off. He's good. Still good. Still ticking. Just a headache. Walk it off. That one I think was a lung shot or something. He just keeps going. Yep, there you go. Still going. That's why I went for the heart shot. So, anyways, that was, I actually think that was the last animal in this herd. So again, comment down below what you thought of this. How have you experienced this glitch? And, well, as always, buttons to push. So, until next time.